Part 1, The Unspoken Damage of Disrespect. Let's start with a moment you're probably all too familiar with. You're in a meeting, maybe on Zoom or in a physical conference room. You've just presented an idea you spent weeks researching, an idea you truly believe in. As you finish, a brief silence hangs in the air, and then a colleague speaks up, not to ask a question or to debate, but to say something like, "Well, that's an interesting take." And they smile. A smile that doesn't reach their eyes. Or maybe it's at a family gathering. You're sharing a personal achievement, and a close relative cuts you off mid-sentence to tell a story of their own, as if you hadn't spoken at all. There was no yelling. No direct insults. But something happened. A subtle slight. An unspoken message that your thoughts, your time, your very presence, don't really matter. That feeling, that sinking in your chest, why does it stick with you for the rest of the day? Why does such a small moment carry so much weight, making you replay it hours later, even when you know you shouldn't? The answer isn't just in your psychology. It's in your biology. Modern science has confirmed a truth humans have felt for millennia: the mind and body are not separate. When you experience moments of disrespect, your brain interprets it as a social threat. And to deal with that threat, it activates an ancient biological response. Your adrenal glands start pumping out a hormone called cortisol. You've probably heard of it. It's the stress hormone, the fuel for our fight or flight response. In a situation of real, physical danger, cortisol is your friend. But when the threats are subtle jabs, constant interruptions, and the daily feeling of being overlooked, your body is left in a constant state of high alert. Imagine driving a car with your foot always on the gas. The engine never gets a rest. That's what's happening inside you. Chronically elevated cortisol levels aren't just a bad feeling, they wreak havoc on your health. It weakens your immune system, interferes with sleep, disrupts your digestion, and can even contribute to more serious health problems over time. So, when we talk about dealing with disrespect, we're not just talking about protecting our feelings. We're talking about protecting our physical health. So what do? We can't fire that colleague or disown that relative. We can't control what other people say or do. And it's at this point of powerlessness that an ancient philosophy offers a lifeline. Over 2,000 years ago, Stoic philosophers like Epictetus, a man who was once a slave and later became one of the most influential thinkers of his time, wrestled with this very question. How do you maintain inner peace in a chaotic and often unjust world? Their answer was both simple and profound: the dichotomy of control. This principle states that in life, some things are within our control, and some things are not. We cannot control the actions, words, or opinions of others. We can't control the weather or the stock market. Trying to do so only leads to frustration and suffering. But there is one universe where we have total dominion: our own thoughts, our own judgments, and our own reactions. Someone else's disrespect is outside of your control. But how you choose to respond to it, that is entirely up to you. This video isn't about learning clever comebacks or psychological tricks to win an argument. It's about a fundamental shift in perspective. It's about withdrawing your precious mental and emotional energy from battles you can't win, and investing it in building an inner fortress. A fortress so solid that the disrespect of others can't find a single crack to seep through. In the next few minutes, we will learn 5 practical strategies, 5 pillars to build that fortress. Let's start with the first pillar, a tool that is as powerful as it is surprisingly subtle. Part 2, the assertive pause, silence as a shield. The first and perhaps most counterintuitive tool we'll explore isn't a word, but the absence of one. We call it the assertive pause. It can be a quiet look, a deliberate stop before you respond. Our instinct, when attacked, verbally or otherwise, is to react immediately. We defend, we explain, we counterattack. It's a reflex honed over millions of years of evolution. But in modern society, where the threats are no longer saber-toothed tigers but razor-sharp sarcasms, that reflex no longer serves us. Instead, it pulls us into emotional quicksand, drains our energy, and hands control to the very person who initiated the conflict. The assertive pause is the conscious act of breaking that cycle. It's you refusing to play a game you can't win, and instead, changing the rules entirely. I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now because I've thought it myself. But just staring at someone silently, isn't that rude? Won't it just make things more awkward and escalate the situation? This is a real fear, one that's been ingrained in us, especially those of us raised to be nice, to be peacemakers, to smooth things over. We're taught to de-escalate tense situations, to fill awkward silences with gentle words. The idea of intentionally creating one can feel like an act of aggression. But let's re-examine the word rude. What is the truly rude act? Is it the person who calmly refuses to engage with negativity? Or is it the initial act from another person who decided it was acceptable to interrupt, belittle, or dismiss you? The true rudeness lies in the initial transgression. Your silence is not an attack. It's a shield. It's a boundary drawn not with words, but with presence. You are saying, non-verbally, I will not allow your energy to invade my space. That isn't rudeness, it's self-preservation at its most fundamental level. Furthermore, we need to clearly distinguish between aggressive silence and assertive silence. Aggressive silence is punitive. It's cold, distant, and meant to make the other person feel small. It's often accompanied by a glare, defiantly crossed arms, a visible tension in the body. It's another form of warfare. Assertive silence, on the other hand, comes from a place of calm and inner strength. It's not meant to punish, it's meant to protect. Your body is relaxed. Your breathing is even. Your gaze is steady but not hostile. It doesn't say, I hate you, it says, I am unaffected. This distinction is everything. One escalates conflict, while the other neutralizes it. So why is this calm silence so powerful? The answer lies deep in the psychology of social interactions. Humans are balancing creatures. When someone treats you with disrespect, they are creating an imbalance, and they expect you to help them restore it by reacting in a predictable way. They jab, you get angry. They interrupt, you get flustered. They condescend, you get defensive. This is a familiar dance, a script where both parties know their roles. Your reaction, even a negative one, validates their power. It shows them that their words have an effect, that they can impact your emotional state. But when you respond with an assertive pause, you tear up the script. You refuse to dance to their music. Suddenly, all the attention, theirs, yours, and anyone else's watching, snaps back to their original action. You've removed yourself from the equation, and all that's left is their behavior, exposed under the spotlight of the silence. They are left alone with their own words, and the space you've created forces them to confront it. This is a phenomenon known as shifting the cognitive burden. Normally, the burden is on you to react, to defend yourself. But silence shifts that burden onto them. Now they are the one who has to decide what to do next in the awkward situation they created. Will they say something else to fill the void? Will they try to explain themselves? Or will they back down? In most cases, the discomfort of being exposed will cause them to retreat. They are used to a verbal sparring match, not a monologue in a mirror. Your silence is that mirror. It reflects their behavior back at them without the distortion of your emotional reaction. And for many people, that reflection isn't pretty. To practice this effectively, we need to focus on the details. This isn't just about shutting your mouth. It's an art. First, mind your body language. When the moment happens, the snide remark, the interruption, resist the urge to shrink or lean forward aggressively. Instead, try a very subtle movement, lean back, just slightly. It's a subtle power cue that shows you are not threatened. Keep your shoulders relaxed and down. Next, and most crucial, is your eye contact. Do not look away. Looking away is a submissive act. But don't glare angrily either. Maintain a calm, steady, and direct gaze. Look at them as if you are genuinely curious, as if you're waiting for the rest of an incomplete sentence, a more meaningful one. This gaze isn't judgmental, it's observant. Then, control your face. Keep it neutral. No smirk. No frown. Just a calm expression. This is hard, but it's key. An unreadable face makes it incredibly difficult for the other person to know what to do, and it heightens their sense of unpredictability. Finally, focus on your breath. Take one slow, deep breath in, and let it out slowly. This serves two purposes: it keeps you physiologically calm, preventing the adrenaline spike, and it helps you time the pause. One full in and out breath cycle lasts about 4 to 5 seconds. That is the perfect length for an assertive pause, long enough to have an impact, but not so long that it becomes a bizarre standoff. Remember that meeting story I mentioned? When that colleague kept interrupting me, my first instinct was to talk louder, to try to win back the floor. But that just made me part of the chaos. So, I tried something different. The next time he cut in, I just stopped. I leaned back in my chair, loosely folded my hands, took a deep breath, and just looked at him. I didn't frown. I just watched. The 5 seconds felt like 5 minutes. At first, he kept talking, but then his voice trailed off as he realized no one else was listening to him anymore. Everyone at the table was looking at me, and then at him, waiting to see what would happen. He started to fidget, coughed, and looked down at his papers. He had lost all his momentum. Then, I took another breath and said, calmly, as I was saying, and continued my point without another interruption. I hadn't said a single word to him, but I had said everything. Silence is not emptiness. It is a space. A space you have the power to create. It is a shield that allows disrespectful words to fly past you without hitting their mark. It's a declaration that your inner peace is not up for grabs. Practicing this will feel unnatural at first. It requires conscious restraint. But every time you do it, you're not just shutting down a disrespectful act in the moment, you are training the people around you how they are and are not allowed to treat you. You are strengthening your inner fortress, one silent brick at a time. But what happens when silence isn't enough? What happens when you are forced to speak, when you have to defend a decision that someone is relentlessly questioning? That brings us to our second pillar. Part 3, the 3-word response, I chose to. If silence is your shield, then mastering short, definitive answers is your sword. This isn't a sword for attacking, however, but one for cutting. Cutting off unwanted interrogations, cutting off attempts to make you doubt yourself, and most importantly, cutting the invisible cord that ties you to seeking others' approval for your own life. Let's consider an all-too-common scenario. You've made a significant life decision. Maybe you've decided to move to a new city, change your career path, start a different diet, or simply opt out of a social event. You feel good about your choice. But then, the interrogation begins. Why? People ask. The question seems innocent on the surface, but it often carries a hidden weight. Why that job? Is the pay good? Why move away? Aren't you thinking about family? Why aren't you coming to the party? Do you have a problem with everyone? Our instinct, again, is to explain. We start building a case to defend our decision. We pull out spreadsheets, research articles, the deep conversations we had with ourselves. We present a detailed thesis, hoping that if we can just make the other person understand our logic, they'll nod and say, "Ah, now I get it. Your decision is valid." But here's the trap, in most cases, the person asking isn't truly seeking understanding. They are looking for a weakness. They're looking for a hole in your argument so they can insert their own opinion, or to suit their own insecurities about choices they were too afraid to make. When you engage in this game of justification, you are implicitly agreeing that your decision requires their validation to be legitimate. You are handing them the judge's gavel for your own life. Stopping the explanation is not an act of secrecy or evasion. It is a declaration of personal sovereignty. It is the recognition of a fundamental truth: you are the only person with the full context of your own life, desires, and values. Therefore, you are the only one qualified to make decisions for yourself. This goes deeper than social psychology, it touches on neuroscience. Every time you defend, over-explain, or seek approval, you activate regions of the brain associated with social anxiety and insecurity. You're telling your brain, the opinion of others is a potential threat, and we need to work hard to neutralize it. It depletes your cognitive resources, leaving you feeling tired and uncertain. Conversely, when you give a short, confident, and unapologetic answer, something magical happens in your brain. Neuroscientists have shown that acting in alignment with your core values and setting healthy boundaries stimulates the release of feel-good neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. When you say a simple phrase like, "because it's what I want," you aren't just ending an uncomfortable conversation. You're performing an act of self-care on a biochemical level. You're sending a powerful message to your nervous system: we are safe. We are in control. We are living authentically. Every time you do this, you're not just reinforcing your external boundaries, you are actively strengthening the neural pathways of confidence and self-worth. You are, quite literally, rewiring your brain to be more powerful. So how do we put this into practice? The key is not to become hostile or secretive, but to become purposefully simple. Develop a few core replies that are true, brief, and non-debatable. They become your conversation enders. For example, let's revisit the job change. Question: but why would you leave such a stable job? Instinctive reaction: well, it was really burning me out, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. I did some research and this new field has a lot more growth potential, and even though the pay might be a little less at first, I have a savings plan and... You can see where this goes. A maze of details that invites judgment. The trained response: because I wanted a change, or it felt like the right decision for me at this time, or the simplest and most powerful, because I chose to. Notice the power of these answers. They offer no information for the other person to latch onto. They do not open the door for follow-up questions. They are solid walls, built of self-assurance. They are polite, but they are also a full stop. What happens when the other person doesn't accept the full stop? What happens when they push? But why? There must be a real reason. This is a crucial moment. Your response here will define future interactions. Do not fall into the trap and start explaining. Instead, use a technique called the broken record. You simply repeat your core answer, perhaps with a slight variation in wording, but with the same message. Like I said, it was the right decision for me. I don't really have anything more to add to that, but I appreciate your concern. I understand you're curious, but this was a personal decision. After you've repeated this once or twice, do something critical: change the subject. Ask them a question about themselves. This shifts the spotlight off you and politely signals that this part of the discussion is over. Anyway, how is that project of yours coming along? This pivot allows them to save face and allows you both to move on from the dead end. Adopting this will take courage. There will be people who are uncomfortable with your new boundaries. They are used to you being an open book. When you close that book, they may feel confused or even rejected. It's vital to remember, their discomfort is not your responsibility to manage. You are not responsible for other people's emotional reactions to your healthy boundaries. Your only responsibility is to live a life that is authentic and true to your own values. The people who truly care for you will learn to respect those boundaries. Those who don't are perhaps the people whose role in your life you need to reconsider, a topic we will explore more deeply in our next section. Start practicing this in low-stakes situations. The next time someone asks why you aren't watching a popular TV show, instead of explaining your busy schedule or your taste in media, just say, "Oh, it didn't really grab me." Notice the feeling of empowerment. Notice the freedom in not having to build a case for a simple choice. Each time you do this, you're building a muscle. The muscle of self-sovereignty. And that muscle will become strong enough to support you in the bigger, more important decisions in life. By ceasing to explain, you are taking back the narrative of your life. You are no longer a defendant in the courtroom of public opinion. You are the author, the narrator, and the sole keeper of the only truth that matters, your own. It is a profound shift, one that will echo through every aspect of your being. Now that we've learned to protect our decisions, we must face an even more complex question: how do we deal with people whose presence in our lives is unavoidable, but whose disrespectful behavior is a constant burden? That brings us to our fourth pillar, a concept that may change how you view your relationships forever. Part 4, Emotional Distancing, Protecting Your Peace. We've discussed the power of silence and the freedom of not needing to explain. These are invaluable tools. But I can hear the question echoing in many of your minds, a question born from life's most complex and painful situations. This is all great, but what if the person disrespecting you is your mother? Your boss you report to every day? Your spouse you share a home with? What do you do when physical distance isn't an option? You can't just walk away from your own life. This is where we must shift from an external strategy to an internal one. If physical distance is a luxury you don't have, then emotional distance becomes an absolute necessity. This is not a new idea, but a profound application of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics understood that we rarely get to choose our circumstances, but we always get to choose how we experience them. You can be chained to a person, a place, or a job, but your mind, your soul, can remain free. Imagine your inner life as a house. In that house are your most precious rooms, the room of your hopes, the room of your fears, the room of your deepest dreams. Throughout our lives, we hand out keys to these rooms to people we trust. But when someone repeatedly enters those rooms only to muddy the furniture and leave dirty footprints on the white carpet of your vulnerability, continuing to give them a key isn't loyalty, it's self-destruction. Emotional distancing is the conscious act of changing the locks. Think of it this way. Picture your relationships as a theater. There are people who deserve a front row seat. They feel every vibration, every emotion with you. They laugh when you laugh, and they feel your pain. But people who consistently disrespect you cannot be allowed to sit there. Emotional distancing is moving them from the front row to the balcony, or maybe even out the door. They can still be in the same theater, the same office, the same house, but they can no longer reach you. They can see the play happening, but they no longer feel the vibrations from the stage. They have lost their access pass to the real you. It's critical to understand what emotional distancing is and what it is not. It is not cold hatred. It is not punitive silence or a contemptuous attitude. It is not a passive-aggressive power game. Those are just other forms of warfare, and they will drain you. Emotional distancing, practiced correctly, is an act of peace. It is not a brick wall of anger, but a semi-permeable membrane of serenity. It allows love and compassion to pass through when you choose, but it filters out the toxicity, the criticism, and the negativity. It's not about punishing them, it's about protecting you. So how do we build this internal structure? It takes deliberate practice and is broken down into several steps. The first step is to go on a strict information diet, or data detachment. People who are disrespectful and controlling often thrive on information. Your vulnerabilities, your fears, your hopes, it's all fuel for their drama machine. You have to stop giving them fuel. This means you stop sharing intimate details about your life with them. You create an information gray zone. For example, when your mother, who always criticizes your financial decisions, asks how work is going, instead of saying, "I'm so worried, my boss is putting on the pressure and there might be layoffs," you simply say, "Work is fine, Mom, nothing new to report." When your partner, who has a habit of belittling your passions, asks what you did all day, instead of sharing excitedly about the creative project you're working on, you can say, "I just took care of a few errands." This might feel inauthentic at first. But ask yourself, have they earned your authenticity? Authenticity and vulnerability are gifts, and they should only be given to those who know how to cherish them. For others, politeness is sufficient. You are not lying. You are simply not offering unnecessary data. You are keeping your gems for yourself instead of casting them before people who will only trample them. The less ammunition you give them, the less they can shoot at you. The second step is to become the director of your conversations, or topic control. When you can't avoid a conversation, you can learn to steer it. Keep the topic superficial, neutral, and impersonal. The weather, a local sports team, a new recipe, the logistical plans for an upcoming holiday. Become a master of bland small talk. You also need to have exit lines prepared. These are pre-planned phrases that help you end a conversation when it starts veering into dangerous territory. When your boss starts to move from work topics to personal comments about how you live your life, you can say, "Speaking of time, I just realized I have an important call coming up. Can we pick this up another time?" When a relative starts interrogating you about your love life at a party, you can smile and say, "Oh, that's a long story. You know, I just saw the dessert table looks amazing, I have to go grab something. So good talking with you." The key is to be swift, polite, and firm. Don't hesitate. Just execute your exit. The third step is the hardest but most transformative, managing your inner monologue, or the inner shield. What happens inside your head while the disrespect is happening? This is where the real battle is won or lost. Try this technique, become a scientist. When the person begins their typical behavior, imagine you're putting on a white lab coat. Your job is not to feel, but to observe and document. Say to yourself silently, "Ah, here it is. The specimen is exhibiting behavior A, the passive-aggressive comment about my appearance. Interesting. Their speech cadence has increased slightly. There's a small tick at the corner of their mouth. Noted." By turning them into an object of study, you instantly create distance. You are no longer the victim in their story, you are the narrator of your own. The emotional sting turns into curious data. Another internal tool is to visualize a mute button. As they launch into their critical tirade, imagine you're pressing a giant remote control and hitting mute. You can still see their lips moving. You nod politely. You maintain eye contact. But in your mind, the volume has been turned down to zero. Their words become white noise, like the hum of an air conditioner. They are there, but they have no meaning. They cannot penetrate your shield of peace. Simultaneously, repeat an internal mantra. It could be, "Their opinion is not my reality." Or, "This is a reflection of them, not me." Or a classic Stoic line, "This too shall pass." Find a phrase that works for you and make it the background music of your mind during these interactions. Finally, the fourth step is consistency. Emotional distancing is not a switch you flip once. It's a daily practice. There will be days you do it perfectly. There will be days you're tired and a comment gets through your shield. Do not get discouraged. That's normal. The key is persistence. These people have been used to pushing your emotional buttons for years, even decades. When they realize the buttons no longer work, they won't give up immediately. They will push harder. They will try new buttons. They will test your new boundaries relentlessly. Your job is simply to remain calmly consistent. Every time you hold your emotional distance, you are sending a clear message: access has been revoked. Over time, they will learn. And a final word on guilt. When you start to emotionally distance yourself from a loved one, guilt can feel like a tidal wave. I'm a bad son. I'm a selfish spouse. I should be trying harder. Recognize that guilt. Acknowledge it. And then gently tell it that it's misplaced. You are not abandoning a person, you are abandoning a toxic dynamic. You are not stopping your love, you are learning to love them from a safe distance, one that doesn't require the sacrifice of yourself. Sometimes, that's the only way to keep loving someone without losing yourself in the process. Creating emotional distance is the ultimate act of self-care in your most challenging relationships. It says, I cannot change you, but I have total power to change how I allow you to affect me. It's you building an inner sanctuary, a place of peace that no one can enter without your permission. Once you have fortified these external and internal defenses, there is only one final step, to build an inner core so solid that it radiates strength naturally. This brings us to the final pillar of our inner fortress. Part 5, Radiating Self-Respect, the Power of Posture. So far, we have focused on building the defenses for our inner fortress. We've learned to use silence as a shield, to use short answers to cut off interrogation, and to create emotional distance to protect our peace. These are invaluable strategies for reacting to disrespect from the outside. But the final pillar, the capstone of this fortress, is not a defense mechanism. It is a broadcast. A radiation from the inside out. It's about proactively embodying a quiet, unshakable sense of self-respect, and it starts with something as simple as it is profound, how you carry your own body. We often think of the mind-body connection as a one-way street. Our feelings dictate our posture. When you feel confident, you stand tall. When you feel sad or ashamed, your shoulders slump. This is true, but it's only half the story. The science of embodied cognition has shown that this is a two-way street. Not only does the mind influence the body is constantly sending signals back to the brain, powerfully shaping our emotional state. In other words, you don't just stand tall because you feel confident, you can actually start to feel more confident because you are standing tall. By deliberately changing your physical posture, you can send a powerful message to your own nervous system, one that can kickstart a biochemical cascade. Some studies, like the work of social psychologist Amy Cuddy, have suggested that adopting power poses, postures that are open and expansive, can even affect our hormone levels. After just a few minutes, these poses may help decrease cortisol, the stress hormone we discussed, while increasing testosterone, a hormone associated with confidence and willingness to take risks. Think of your body as an antenna. The posture you choose not only determines the kind of signal you broadcast to the world about how they should treat you, it also determines the kind of feedback signal you receive from your own nervous system. A slumped, closed-off posture sends a signal to your brain that says, be alert. We're in a vulnerable situation. Prepare for attack. Conversely, an upright, open posture sends the signal, we are safe. We are strong. We are in control. You get to choose which signal you want to amplify inside yourself. Now, take a moment to picture two people. First, picture someone who feels deeply disrespected. What do they look like? Chances are, you're picturing someone making themselves small. Their shoulders are rolled forward, as if to protect their heart. Their back is slightly hunched. Their head is down, their gaze directed at the floor or averted. They take up as little space as possible. This is, in essence, a posture of apology. It's a nonverbal apology for their own existence, a message to the world that says, I'm not worthy of this space. I don't want to cause trouble. Now, picture a second person. This person isn't arrogant or aggressive. They simply have a quiet dignity. What do they look like? Their shoulders are relaxed and back, not in a rigid, military way, but naturally. Their spine is long, as if a gentle, invisible string is pulling the crown of their head toward the ceiling. Their head is level, and their chin is parallel to the floor. Their gaze is forward, not down in submission, nor up in arrogance. They look straight out at the world. This posture doesn't scream, look at me. It whispers, I am here. It doesn't say, I am better than you. It says, I am enough. This is the posture of self-respect. This is where Stoicism connects perfectly. The Stoics talked a great deal about the inner citadel or inner fortress. This is a place in your mind, a place of peace and reason, that no external event can breach without your permission. It is where your core worth resides. And one of the central tenets of Stoicism is that this worth is completely independent of the opinions of others. You can be praised by the entire world or condemned by it, your intrinsic value remains unchanged. Holding your head high is not a performance for others. It is not an attempt to impress them or to challenge them. It is a reminder to yourself. It is you aligning your physical self with that philosophical truth. It's you telling yourself, I am inhabiting my inner citadel right now. I am standing on the bedrock of my self-worth, a foundation that cannot be shaken by the winds of public opinion. It's an act of integrity, the harmony between your outer self and your inner beliefs. Every time you correct your posture, you're not just adjusting your bones, you are realigning your soul. Building this habit doesn't have to be complicated. It can be integrated into your daily life through small, intentional acts. Try a technique I call the threshold trigger. Every doorway you walk through during your day, the front door of your home, your office door, the door to a meeting room, the grocery store, use it as a cue. Before you step through, pause for a split second. Take a breath. Pull your shoulders back. Lift your chin. And then walk through that threshold as if you belong in the space you are entering. Not with the arrogance of a king, but with the quiet assurance of someone who knows their presence is valid. Another technique is the mirror check. Most of us glance in the mirror several times a day. The next time you catch your reflection, don't just check your hair or your clothes. Check your posture. Are you slouching? Make a small correction. Stand up tall. It's a 1-second conversation with yourself, a tiny reaffirmation of your worth. And in our modern world, be mindful of phone posture. We are all guilty of it. We hunch over our tiny screens for hours, a posture of submission to technology. Make a conscious habit of raising your phone to your eye level, rather than lowering your head to meet it. It's a small change, but it's symbolically huge. You are commanding the technology, not the other way around. You are keeping your head in a position of dignity, even while scrolling through social media. Practicing these things might feel like an act at first. But like any skill, repetition creates automaticity. Eventually, you won't have to think about it. The posture of self-respect will become your default posture. And when that happens, a subtle but powerful shift will occur. People will begin to treat you differently, not always consciously, but because you are broadcasting a different frequency. You are sending out a quiet signal that you are a person who respects themselves, and therefore, expects respect from others. This is the final piece of the puzzle. It is making your inner state of self-respect a tangible, visible reality, not as a show, but as a simple statement of fact. You are a person of worth. Carry yourself in a way that reflects that. So we've reached the end of this journey, armed not just with advice, but with tangible tools. We have built, brick by brick, the 5 pillars of our inner fortress: the assertive pause, a shield of silence; the 3-word response, a sword of sovereignty; emotional distancing, the art of protecting our peace; and radiating self-respect, the broadcast of our posture. But the most important thing to understand is that this is not a collection of individual hacks or techniques to be used at random. They are not weapons you only draw when under attack. Instead, they are the interconnected elements of a single, coherent philosophy of life. They are the components of a daily, Stoic practice. Just as you go to the gym to train your muscles, you practice these principles to train your soul. Every time you choose silence over reaction, every time you refuse to over-explain, every time you hold your emotional distance, every time you stand a little taller, you are not just handling a situation. You are doing one more rep in your mental workout. And here is the core truth of this entire philosophy: dealing with disrespect is not a battle you fight with others, it's a standard you set for yourself. The focus of the change is not on how to alter their behavior, an effort that is, as the Stoics pointed out, outside of our control and doomed to frustration. The focus, instead, is on so fortifying yourself that their behavior becomes irrelevant. The goal isn't to make them stop throwing stones at you. The goal is to build an inner fortress so strong that their stones simply bounce off without leaving a scratch. This journey is not about perfection. There will be days when you are tired, vulnerable, and a thoughtless comment slips through your defenses. There will be times when you fall back into old habits of defensiveness or justification. That is not failure, it's part of the practice. Like learning a musical instrument, there will be wrong notes. The goal isn't to never make a mistake, it's to return to your center, to your calm, a little bit faster each time. Every stumble is an opportunity to observe, learn, and strengthen your resolve. It's a process of patience and self-compassion. Thank you for taking the time to join me on this deep dive. If these ideas have brought you value, if they've sparked something inside of you, I would be grateful if you'd hit the like and subscribe buttons so we can continue having conversations like this. But more than that, I want to invite you to be part of the practice. The comment section of this channel is not just a place for opinions, it's a community, a place to share and learn. So today, I have a specific question for you. Of the 5 pillars we discussed, which one will you focus on practicing first? Is it the assertive pause, to find strength in stillness? Is it to stop over-explaining, to reclaim your autonomy? Perhaps it's the most difficult challenge of creating emotional distance with a loved one. Or is it simply starting by holding your head a little higher as you walk through a doorway? Share your intention in the comments below. By writing it down, you not only make it more real for yourself, but your story, your choice, might just be the encouragement someone else needs to read today to begin their own journey. You become a part of their practice, as they become a part of yours. We are stronger together. Until next time, stay strong, stand tall, and remember, the respect you seek from the world begins with the respect you give yourself.